Alright, it's another week and another episode of Stargirl. And I gotta start off here by saying, yeah, I'm not really sure about this episode. I mean, I've got really mixed feelings on my end. I didn't like this episode so much, and I didn't really dislike it so much as well. There were just these moments when this episode was just amazing, like really good, and then there were the other moments where you start hating the episode, where you start disliking it, where you feel that they are repeating certain things, certain tropes, certain patterns, and irritating ones at that. But anyway, though, and before I get started with my detailed review, welcome back guys to another one of my Stargirl videos, and my review of the 8th episode of the first season, an episode which was otherwise titled Shiv Part II. Okay, so this is the continuation of the story of Shiv. You know, Shiv with Stargirl, introducing Shiv to Stargirl. But this time around though, the enemies do know one another. Cindy knows who her enemy is, and Courtney as well does know who her enemy is. That was one-sided last week, because Courtney did know that was Cindy, but we did not realize, and Courtney did not realize, that Shiv, aka Cindy, knew who she was. But alright though, a lot of things happening on this episode. A lot of comic book Easter eggs as well were there on this episode. But let us get started from the very beginning. I do like Pat's idea, you know, how he's driving like a madman, creating a cover story for Courtney's injuries by crashing his car. However, I also like the parallel driving like a madman in reaction to Courtney being in danger to Courtney's accident. That is how the premiere started as well, driving like a madman to try and save Starman and the JSA as well. Only on the premiere, an accident wasn't really an option. Now, it does seem like Jordan McKent, aka Icicle, is very interested in Barbara Whitmore. I think the words of his son are getting to him. You know how Cameron talked about the girl he likes on last week's episode, aka Courtney, told him that his mom would have wanted him to be happy. That conversation about liking a girl for the first time, like really liking her, and all of that stuff. I think this man is taking it to heart, but he's taking a liking to none other than Barbara Whitmore, which is gonna cause a lot more issues in the future episodes. Now honestly, a lot of people are complaining about Beth, but at this point, early on in the events of the episode, she is the smartest of the group. Like, we need to train, we need to do things smart, and not just act on a whim, which is a problem here because Courtney just got injured. She got really screwed with her injuries with fighting Shiv, and these guys just want to go out there and do the same thing. You know, fight without training, fight without thinking, and that's a problem. These kids are not learning. But even Beth has a problem, and this is the annoying part about this episode because, yeah, she does act smart in the beginning, but she does act stupid later on. So she drags the other two into a very stupid plot to go into Cindy's house, try to figure out what's going on with Cindy, who her parents are they members of the ISA? She does discover something out of it, but at the same time the problem is much bigger here. I mean, even Pat gets pulled into that situation. But okay though, gotta talk about her discovery when I get to that later on in the events of the episode. For the time being, let's focus on the order of events. Now we've got Beth convincing Rick to hold his horses at the beginning of the episode. That's an Easter egg to them being quite close on the pages of the comics. That would be close enough for Rick to take his first Miraclo pill against his father's disapproval and dislike in order to save her life during the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So sort of a double Easter egg over here because it's about Beth and Rick, you know, that relation in the comics. But at the same time, it's about that anger, that persistence to avenge Courtney, which does match with his persistence to save Beth on the pages of the source material. But okay though, I do know it sounds funny when they start talking to the cosmic staff, or that the staff has a mind of its own, and at a first glance it is true, it does sound funny. But the staff on the pages of the comics does communicate, not with anyone really, but only with its wielder, but it does communicate, which at least means that part about Courtney communicating with it does hold true on the pages of the comics. That explains why the staff is always doing the right thing there, you know, always matching Courtney's moves. That pretty much is about receiving mental commands from the wielder of the staff, which in this case happens to be Courtney. But alright though, one of the bigger Easter eggs on this episode was an Easter egg to two superheroes out of the comics. The Easter egg came in the form of the man that Icicle killed early on in the events of the episode, that being Mr. Riley. I mean, I wouldn't have personally put it together until the moment that I heard the name Firebrand Chemical. So we've got both names, Mr. Riley and Firebrand Chemical, put together in the same sentence, and I don't think it could get any more obvious. We've got Rod Riley out of the comics, a kid who came from money and over time ended up fighting crime under the alias Firebrand. We also got his sister, Danette Riley, who as opposed to her brother, who was all about martial arts skills, had actual pyrokinetic powers, and one who ended up using the very same alias, Firebrand. But even more though about Rod Riley. Rod Riley was a member of the Freedom Fighters, so sort of an Easter egg to an Easter egg that we got a couple of episodes ago. You know, the one with Rick Crowley, aka Red B, the name dropped during the Hourman and Midnight episode. Danette Riley though, and on the other hand, she was a member of the All-Star Squadron, which makes her a future, very much possible future player in this JSA team-up that we've been watching, just like I expect they might end up doing the same with Jenna Riley. But yeah though, on that note as well, Rod and Danette's father was a businessman, an extremely wealthy one at that, which could mean that there is a possibility the man we just met there, you know, stellar career, probably making decent money out of it, could possibly be father to one or both of them. Also, with Icicle murdering him there, I think one or both of his kids would have a lot of good reasons to go all superheroes and go against the ISA, and probably in the process, even if temporarily, join the JSA. But moving on though, on this episode as well, Henry King Jr. is still hanging by a thread. His father in the medical center, his telekinetic powers getting stronger, uncontrollable so far as well, causing him a ton of pain, driving him crazy in a way, all set up for next week's episode, titled Brainwave Jr. The way that it's all driving him crazy as well, I think that's an Easter egg to Mr. Mind on the pages of the comics, you know, invading his brain, heightening his powers, but also causing him to go insane over time. Of course as well on the pages of the comics, the unresolved issues with his father and his villainy did not really help him overcome that madness, that insanity. Now, when I use terms like madness or insanity, I'm not using them in the literal sense, I'm using them in the figurative sense, you know, going crazy over something and that leading to certain reactions, in the case of Brainwave Jr. But anyway though, he's gaining more control over them, you know, those abilities, again set up for next week's episode, finds that key, unlocks that, you know, room/closet and finds his father's Brainwave costume. Notable to mention over here is that he doesn't use the same costume in the comics, Brainwave Jr. that is. Instead, he uses a completely different costume that is not representative of the villain that his father was. But there's yet another Easter egg in the picture to his mother. I think we're gonna see her in flashbacks on next week's episode. That might actually be important. The focus in the least on that picture is hinting at something out of the comics, which is that she is the adoptive sister of Sylvester Pemberton, aka Starman on the series, the first Star-Spangled kid, and then Skyman in the comic books. Now, if the series were to go by the book on this one, her name over here is going to be Mary Pemberton, and her alias as a sidekick of Sylvester would be Mary Girl 1000 Gimmicks. But moving away from the Easter eggs and speaking of the core events of the episode, Henry Jr. also discovered that he's been played all along, you know, Cindy watching him, the entire bit about being his girlfriend, all part of the long con. I'm halfway between thinking all of this is going to turn him into a force of good as he starts in the comics, and thinking he might actually be so damaged he would right away go to villain, something akin to what I mentioned earlier about his later on unstable mental state that leads him into founding the Legion of Doom on the pages of the comics. But okay, almost done here. I love Cindy's apology. I mean, she's apologizing for one thing, or seemingly apologizing for one thing, but it sounded all the way like she was apologizing for that other thing. She does know though, I mean, that's what she was actually apologizing for, or fake apologizing for. All cards are on the table, but she's willing to keep the secret for the childish and selfish reason she wants to get a seat at that table, not get sidelined as she words it. But alright though, while Beth does risk it, while we've got a lot of problems with Beth gave us some Easter eggs when it comes to the Dragon King. And of course the team now knows that Cindy is daughter to the Dragon King. So, a controversial scientist and member of the Japanese military throughout the 30s and 40s, that's Cindy's father, the Dragon King. All of that is true as well from a comic book perspective. This man was as well allied with Hitler himself, used dark magic as part of resisting the Allies, while the latter used the Spear of Destiny, an artifact that we've already seen before on Legends of Tomorrow. I think it was Season 3, if I remember correctly here. But one of the things I loved the most about this episode was that statement, "I'm gonna kill that Star-Spangled bitch." It is the obvious reference to, I mean, Courtney never started off as Stargirl with the Cosmic Staff, but rather as the second Star-Spangled kid with the cosmic converter belt that we've not seen so far on the series. But all of that is one thing, and I think the highlight of the episode was Henry's powers at the end. You know, that brain blast that he did emit at the very end of the episode to stop all these voices in his head. The voices of Courtney and Cindy, you know, their thoughts. So yeah, that was pretty good, and that's right out of the comics. That's one of his abilities. So we've got another ability coming to light. Great setup for next week's episode, with Henry King Jr.'s alias out of the comics, Brainwave Jr., being the title of said episode. But that said though, I'd give this episode a 7 out of 10. I mean, I understand these kids are teens, but you would expect at some point they'd realize something is going wrong with their methodology, but they're still going. I mean, yes, Beth did stop Rick from strong-arming his way through things and through life, but nonetheless, she still did a stupid thing there, and it's starting to get annoying, and repetitive as well. I do understand Courtney's motive at the very end. I mean, yeah, she's trying to save her friends and all of that good stuff, but I don't like the rest of the team this week in the least bit. That being said as well, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you think is gonna go down on the Brainwave Jr. episode. Now, if you've liked the content of this video, don't forget to drop it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribe to the channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Stargirl or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, stay safe, and have a great day.